And boom! Welcome back, everybody, to the Omniverse Comics Guide podcast. I'm your host, Eric Anthony, and our guest this week, returning guest, one of our favorites, the author of Dead Romans, Mr. Fred Kennedy. Welcome back to the show, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me back. I'm stoked to be here.
Oh,
Got
oh,
lots
it's
to
so it's
say.
always so. Yeah, even fired up about this. I'm so excited. I'm like, all right, he's excited to do this cast. So it's only fitting. It's a new year. You're our first interview for the new year. So toast to you. Here's a little Wayne Gretzky whiskey
Oh,
in
look at this.
honor
I
of
gotta.
the Edmontonian shout out. And of course, more importantly, where is it? Where is it? Where'd I put it? Hey man, there it is, right behind me. We just talked
Ah!
about. We did a top 10 of 2023 for both, or sorry, top 20 of 2023, our first episode, and perhaps this made the list. You have to listen in. Yeah, I did. I had to
Yeah.
shout you out. It's a beautiful book, man. Like the book itself is a great story. You picked the right artist to tell it for
Mhm.
you, but even the fact that it came out in this nice hardcover edition, I think it does it justice because when you get the book presentation done in a certain way, it makes the person in the store say, "This must be kind of important if they went
Yeah.
to this extent to present it this way." So well done. How do you
Yeah.
feel? How does it feel to have that on the shelves now?
It's pretty cool. What's all? It's like an oversized hardcover. The quality is really great.
Yeah.
Like, there's the dust jacket, and then the interior cover. With that, not interior cover, but the regular cover, the hardcover. Like, it's just got this nice matte finish on it. It's a beautifully produced book. I really like it. I'm very excited with the quality that we got out of it.
Did you? How much of like? Did you have a team that was saying we're gonna present it? What do you think, Fred? You get the final say, or did you say
No,
I know exactly? No,
no.
you didn't have any of that.
It was well. I was involved in the discussions, yes, but I really took a back seat to Allison O'Toole, our editor, and Jim Valentino of Shadowline, and Nick also had a lot more to say. Like, the thing about being the writer is that I once the story's out, once the book is out with all the panels and whatnot, sort of step back, and I let them hammer it, especially given their level of experience versus mine. So I pay attention to what's going on. I listen into the conversations. And if there's something that's being said that I feel very strong about, then I'll step in. But for the most part, like, take those moments to learn from people that have been there before. So with the putting together of the book, I really just let them do what they were doing.
But you had good reason to trust them because I mean
Yeah.
it's a beautiful book.
Yeah.
It really is. It's for your first image comic book line, your first story published. You hit it out the park. Well done,
Yeah.
man.
It
So
was
I'm
really
happy
good.
for you. That's great.
Man, I'm super stoked. We're working on the second arc right now.
Yes.
Which I don't know how much I'm even allowed to say. So I won't say a lot. I'll just say that it's all mapped out, it's all planned, it's all ready to go. The first script is in with Allison right now. She's editing it as we speak, and I've already got most of the second issue written out. I'm having a problem with page real estate at the moment because there's something a beat that I want to hit by the end of the first issue, and I'm definitely wrestling with panels right now. But it'll all get done. It'll look really good. And there's some cool stuff in this new arc that's coming down the pipes. Some stuff that we haven't seen in the previous ones. Um, more there's some more mythological stuff that's going on in this one. And is it real, or are because Arminius is kind of broken as an individual, and he's broken as like a commander who's watching things fall apart, and as a just a person whose life is not what he had expected it to be. Because if you follow along in the book, he's sort of like never his own person. When he was a kid, he was
Yeah.
taken to Rome, and then when he's taken to Rome to become what the Romans want him to become. Before he even leaves, his dad's like, remember who you are. This is what you got to do. And blah, 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 blah. There's never been a point in his life where he's done anything for him. And then he wanted Honoria to be by his side at the end of that first arc, but she feels betrayed, and rightly so. And it speaks to his like levels of emotional maturity, but even with that, that doesn't mean his pain isn't valid, you know? And so there's a lot of like emotional weight with that character, with Arminius as a character. And I think you really see it sort of come to a head in this next arc. And there's the first one, Dead Romans, is very big. It's a big, like it's a big epic story. It's so huge. The second arc is much smaller in scale, and I think it's much more like the first one is character driven, but it's like the character aspects of the story are there, but they're set amid this massive set piece of the battle. Whereas this one, that we're in so small that the character is right there, right in your face all the time, you know?
Right, right. Yes. It didn't feel in the first book, the intimacy, there were moments of intimacy, but
Yes,
it felt like you were placing pieces on the board and
totally.
getting the reader acquainted with here's where we start, and it seems like very tight scenes inside of this carriage that they're being carried.
Yeah.
Arminius and
Honoria. Yeah.
Honoria are having their moment together, and you're kind of seeing this plot unfold, and that separation, everybody becomes distant, so you're kind of here's where
Yeah.
everybody's located, and you're getting their motives. Did you know that you were going to do a second volume of Dead Romans, or did you have it ready for, if we're going to do 6 issues, I'm ready for 12? How
We
long do you
wrote it
think
as
you can
12.
carry? You wrote it for 12.
We
Okay.
wrote it as
Got you.
12. The thing was, if you look at the beginning, if you look at the very first page, there's like it says September 9 AD, a call for aid comes from the north. Rome answers. Rome always answers. That was
Hmm.
originally supposed to be preamble to explaining the story, right? And then the
Okay.
beginning of issue 7, you were going to realize that everything you had seen was just a flashback to what was happening now. And it was going to have the Emperor Tiberius explaining what is going to happen next. Because that those words at the beginning were supposed to be, you were there on da 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 da, you saw what happened da 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 da, and then I had this intention of you as the reader being like, oh, who is it, who's talking, what's going on.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
but then when we got the book, we told Jim that it was 6 issues, and then so that's all we're doing, we're only doing 6.
Mhm.
And then when that dialogue was written that way, it was Allison who goes, listen, you need to accept that this might not stick the landing, and it might only be 6 issues. So it needs to stand alone. So we changed that. And so that means I had to change the beginning of issue 7. And I think the changes that were made allowed us to really focus more in on the emotional pain and strife that we are putting everyone through. We're really cranking the gears down on everybody in this one.
That's cool.
Yeah,
So issue 7 is being worked on, or is that one
it's done.
complete?
Well, no, no, no. Issue
That's done.
7 is written. The
Written.
first draft
Okay.
is written. Allison is editing it right now, which means there'll probably be a few tweaks and stuff. But for the most part, that's shippable. And issue 8, I'm about 2/3 to halfway done, but I have a feeling I'm gonna have to like throw half of it out and rework a lot of it. But it's coming. And then Nick and I are doing. Guess I can say. I don't know. Can I? We're doing a
So
story for a very cool video game franchise. And then
nice.
when he's done that, we're going to go straight into Dead Romans. So my intention is that by the time he is done that video game story we're working on, he'll be right into, like, I'll have most of it written, if not the first 3 or 4 issues, like issues 7, 8, 9, and 10 in the bag by that time. Yeah, and we're planning on doing we're planning a book for after that, for after Dead Romans, that is a horror story. And I think Nick's going to nail that one. Nick's perfect for a horror story. I think he's going to do a great job.
That's great. It's cool to see how you guys have become that writer artist duo, that team, that you're getting projects together, and there's like a synergy between you guys. Like when that happens, that's very important for both of your, I guess, careers, because like the opportunities just go back and forth, and it's like these are the guys to tell this story. That's neat.
Like him and Adam Gorham are like two of my buds. There's a lot of people that I really love to work with. I've got something that I'm working on right now that it's still in the pitch phase. I don't want to really talk about it, but this guy is somebody that I've wanted to work with for a long time. So hopefully we can come back on and talk about that at the end of the year if everything works out. Yeah.
Yes, of course. That's great. Awesome, dude. I'm happy to hear that Dead Romans 2 is in the works. You guys are drawing it, you're writing the script, there's somewhat of a schedule where we can anticipate it. So that's going to be 12 issues, a complete story from there.
Yeah,
that's
6 more
12
issues,
is going to be it.
Yeah, that's 6 more issues. What's funny is I wrote like because you have to really know what's happening, because it's a few years later, so there's like a gap between the 2 arcs. So what happens between there and there, right? So I can't just start writing there. I have to write everything in between. So that's all written too. I could write like another 18 issues between Dead Romans 6 and Dead Romans 7. Like I could write it out like very easily because all the legwork is done. Because in order for everything to make sense when we start here, you got to know what's going on in between here. Otherwise, you're just going to be floating and the continuity is shot. No. So it's all written. I could, like, Nick has told me that I should try and see if I can write like a novel or prose to get that put out too. And it'd be like, that'd be cool. But I don't know if anyone would even want me to do that. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, why not? I mean, it's you build yourself a little universe, right? And once that catches on, and it's the Dead Romans brand, it'll could be just stories that are told even in almost like an anthology way, for you to just come in and out like a Mignola style thing, where you just tell different sections of the empire what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
And sometimes they crisscross with each other. You could totally pull that off.
I got
Especially
into
because you love the history.
Oh yeah, I that's something that like I'm kind of scared about, is that I don't want to become like Rome guy. You know, don't get me wrong.
No,
that'd be pretty rad. Like I think that's pretty awesome. But like you don't want to. I would love to come back and do it. You know, like I would love to do something almost like Northlanders from Vertigo. You know, where you do these little like 6-issue mini arcs about little things that are happening. And I was talking when I was at New York Con. I was having drinks with Rossi Gifford, and she was doing all these interviews about the Adam Eve game that she was working on at the time. When I was like, we started talking about Boudica. Do you know who Boudica is?
Yeah, Boudica. She's a Green Lantern Corps, isn't she? Is she from Green
Lantern? She is. Where does the name come from, though? So Boudica was a tribal queen in what is now Essex, and this was right when the Romans were conquering, and there was like her husband died, right? So her husband dies, and to secure peace between the Roman Empire and his people, because her husband sees the way the wind is blowing, like he knows that Rome is here to stay. The best thing for his people is to work with the Romans, because if they don't, they're all going to die. So for him, when he dies, in his will, as his last command, shares his kingdom between his daughters and the emperor. emperor says, no, it's ours. So they go in and they brutalize the land. There's a movie that's coming out, actually. Clive Standen from Vikings is actually in the movie. And they do some pretty not so nice things to her and her daughters. They scar her face with hot pokers, and they hang her from a tree. And so then Boudica is like, you know what? We tried to work with these Romans and they don't want to work with us. So she leads this massive revolt, and they actually burn Camalodunum, which I probably just butchered the pronunciation. And then they pillage Londinium. And so the interesting thing is there's a road, and this road still exists today. This road that actually goes like northwest. I think it goes to Chester. I'm not sure if it goes to Chester, which was another Roman fortress, but it goes northwest. And the Romans came down to draw her army out, and so her army kept going up, and the Romans lured them into like a trap. And the Romans were outnumbered like 5-1. And her depending on what source you read, she knew that it was a trap, but they wanted blood, because if they didn't get blood, her tribal confederation was going to fall apart. So they attacked, and they were absolutely massacred. The Romans killed everyone. No one survived. Men, women, and children. Everyone died. So Rossi Gifford and I wanted to do a story about Boudica, which so we talked about doing that at New York. We were pretty inebriated, and we were getting very vocal about it. And I talked. But what's interesting too is, Becky Cloonan, right? She's like killing with Soma right now. I interviewed Becky Cloonan years ago, and she had talked that she always wanted to do a book about Boudica. And then when I saw her at San Diego this year, because I feel like this year was like I've been bouncing around in the comic scene as like an indie creator for so long, and I've done so many shows, and I've met people. Like, I know so many people, but I've never had my moment, my book, land. And then so for Dead Romans coming out now, and getting to go to San Diego and signing at the Image booth was so rad. And Becky Cloonan was there, and I was talking to her, and she was so congratulatory, and she was so kind and genuine, because she's like, you've been doing this for so long. It's so good to see. And I immediately said, when are you doing your book about Boudica? That was the first thing I said to her. She's like, I don't know if I'm ever going to do that. She's like, why don't you do a book about Boudica? I'm like, I'm only doing it if you'll do all the covers for it. She goes, I will, if you get this book, if this book lands, I will do your covers for you. So the big driving factor for me is to work with Becky Cloonan and Rossi Gifford. I think that'd be pretty dope.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. I hope it happens. You heard it here first, people. I
Yeah,
hope you heard
yeah.
it here first.
I was, every time I've discussed this with any creator about doing it, I've always been pretty greasy at the time. So
That's good. That's okay. No, I'm looking forward to it, man. I think
greasy in a positive way, never greasy in a
yeah.
sleazy way. I'm talking like I'm from the prairie, so when I say greasy, I just mean I'm having a good time. I'm having a few drinks. I'm having a few puffs of fresh air. I'm not being sleazy. I'm having a good time,
I understood. But it's good that you gave the context to it, because I'm like, people won't understand that maybe abroad.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
well, I'm excited for you. I'm so happy for the success thus far, and it's so good to have you back. This is going to be an addition to the collector's item special that we do on the Omniverse. Usually, my pal Dave is the host of those shows, but he gave me the honors of being able to schedule this with you, and getting into your collection a little bit, and some of the things that you love to own that you want to tell us about. And maybe it's not something. I was spoiled by the email that you sent back to me with some of your answers, and I didn't want to know them, but I know one of them
I
for
didn't know if
sure.
you wanted to know them, so I picked the 5, and then because in case you
That's
needed art
okay.
and stuff. Yeah.
That's okay. Regardless, I only know one for sure because it was the first one on the list. And I was like, no, I don't. So okay, fine, I know
Yeah.
one. So let's get right into it. Let's start with a guilty pleasure of Fred Kennedy's. What's your guilty pleasure that you just can't help but love?
I hate it and I love it, and I hate that I love it is what I hate. It's the Gilded Age. Now, this is interesting. So the term guilty pleasure I remember there was an interview, and it was what's his face, the lead singer from Slipknot, who went on to do Stone Sour. I always forget his name. But he was talking about like I have no guilty pleasures because what I like, I love, and I don't feel bad about it. And I like this show because I think it's very, very well written. It's the Gilded Age, okay? It's the Gilded Age on HBO, and I love it. And if it's on, I will watch it. And I only started watching it because my wife and I have like a back and forth thing. So I'll pick a show, she'll pick a show. And the thing is that we
Fair.
want to spend time with each other and we'll watch each other's show. And I also think it's important to like watch and be take an interest in what your partner is interested in so that you learn more about them as your relationship grows. Like we've been together for like 20 years and I'm still learning things, you know? So she watched The Gilded Age and I'm like, oh God. But she goes, you like Downton Abbey. And that's another thing. I like Downton Abbey. And I should have hated that
It's a good
too, but I
show.
did. It's so
It's a good
good.
show, man. You know
It's
what
so
else is good? I don't know if you like The Crown. The Crown is good too.
yeah,
I tell
like
my wife,
it's so frustrating because there's shows that are about terrible people. They're just terrible people. You know, like I God, it's Prince Philip in The Crown is such a complicated person who's not bad but is terrible but is a product of his environment and is like he has these, and that's what I think I like about I think The Crown, especially the first two seasons with Prince Philip is really good. Matt, what's his name? Matt something. He was the Doctor Who. He was playing Prince Philip in the first few seasons.
yeah, I forget his name.
Yeah, and
I
he's in
forget his
House of the
name.
Dragon too. He's incredible. He's really blown me away with the variety of characters that he can play and just pull them off all the time. But like Prince Philip, there's the scene where he's like making fun of the dudes from Africa that fought for the British in the war, and he's making fun of them, like, "Oh, you didn't really get those medals, did you?" Like, da 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 da. But then at the same time, when the little kids are around, he's like playing with all the little kids, all the kids that are like that work on the preserve that they're at, like, and he's taking them to drive them around in the car, letting them drive the truck, and he's like, "Oh, he's an asshole." But he's really friendly to children. Is he really an asshole? Nah, he's this wiener. And then all of a sudden, like the elephant comes out of the bush and he like alone stands there so that all the women and children can get away. He's like, I'll die, I'll die. And it's like, I like it when you give a character complexity. Like, he's a shitty person, but he's not a shitty person. You know what I mean?
But that's the best type of character
Yeah,
because I think
yeah.
we need to see ourselves like that because
Dude.
there's a lot of times we like look at people and it's like that's it, that's something about them I'm decided, and then
Man,
you realize like, oh, but that's really nice about them too.
yes.
We're complicated.
So in the Gilded Age, the main there's like the matriarch and the patriarch, the like main characters of the show. Like, he's a railroad tycoon, right? So he's this railroad tycoon, and he's just he's totally oppressing the workers. Refuses to even give them 8 hours a day as a job, like consistently, like just the worst to the working class, you know. But then he's really good to his wife, like he loves his wife at the same time. And my wife is like, "Oh, he reminds me of you." I'm like, "Why? Because I'm terrible to the poor." I hate poor people. And she's like, no, because, you really love your wife because he loves his wife. And it's like, yes, he loves his wife. He really does. But the whole show is this like really rich people trying to secure their wealth by exploiting poor people and then being the coolest rich people in all of New York. It's like, that's the show. But it's so well written that you become invested in these incredibly trite, inaccessible struggles. Like, I don't care about your big party to be the coolest people in New York. I don't. But yet I'm watching the show being like, ooh, I hope Mrs. Fish comes to the party. That would be really exciting for them. Like,
We
ugh,
love the drama, we
I
love being the
know.
fly on the wall, right?
I hate it so much. Here I am struggling to make my mortgage payment, and they're like, "Will we be able to get the best Parisian opera singers to come to our party?" And it's like, "Ooh, this is what I need to watch." Like, oh, I hate myself for liking it so much. You know?
I
I
feel
told
you,
you I'd be
man.
ready to go about this. Like, and I've just
Yeah,
finished
you're
season
fine.
two again yesterday because my parents came in for for Christmas break, and they were staying with us for like 2 weeks, and then my mom had never watched it, and so then my wife wants to watch it with my mom. So then, of course, I have to watch the whole thing all over again.
You have
Ugh.
to.
And then we just wrapped it up last night, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did this again. Awful, terrible.
I feel you, buddy. My guilty pleasure would probably be something like Grey's Anatomy. I haven't watched all of it, but the first season to maybe the eighth, I'd be happy to watch it if it's on TV with my wife because it's just a guilty pleasure. Couldn't
Yeah.
help it.
It's like
Oh
I was
man,
about to
I
say I
feel
haven't
you.
watched all the what like all 80 seasons. There's more Grey's Anatomy than
That's
Star
the
Trek,
point.
man.
That's why I'm like, okay, it got to a level where I don't watch that anymore. But there was a time where, yeah, every week me and my wife are tuned in. Do you have a comic book guilty pleasure?
A comic book guilty pleasure? You know, I don't know. Not really, because like I think with comic books, I fall into this like state of everything that I buy and everything that I read, I still just absolutely love. I mean, there's some stuff that I read and I think like it reads as kind of dated. We were talking before we came on the air about about the Secret Wars, and now the original Secret Wars. It feels very hokey and very dated, and but it's still really cool. Like the thing is that when I'm reading some comics, I read for me now. You know what I mean? I read to feel like I'm reading them now, right now. And then there are others that I'm reading to feel like I felt when I first read them, like a bit of a nostalgia dump. And I don't
Yeah,
know if it's a guilty pleasure, but my son has these like Legend of Zelda manga comics, and I love to
right,
read
right.
those, and they're clearly written for a very young audience, but I remember loving The Legend of Zelda when I was his age. And so I read all those. Like my oldest son, who is like 12 now, he is way more into The Legend of Zelda than I think I ever was. And I was just before we came on, I was downstairs and he was going through his catalog of weaponry and armors in Tears of the Kingdom. Oh my God. Like, and he's like, "Look, Dad, this is the legend, the armor from Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link." And I'm like, "Oh, all right, cool." Like, amazing. Absolutely. Like, he's so into it. He loves it. So yeah, I guess if I had a
That's
guilty
cool.
pleasure, it'd be yeah, that or maybe I don't know. Yeah, that's probably what I would say is my guilty pleasure comic wise. It'd be like comics for my kids that I'll read. I don't know if you consider even Diary of a Wimpy Kid a comic. It's kind of like a cross between a comic and a book. And
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
read all of those just because my kids are reading them. So well, I guess that'll count.
That'll count. Yeah, that definitely counts.
Yeah,
Okay, what's a current read that you got? What's something that you're enjoying right now?
I don't know if you've ever read Thousand Ships. It's an image book. And it was originally done in black and white, and it was like sort of like an historical retelling of the Battle of Troy. And it's massive, dude.
That's
Like
cool.
I'm already like
That's
there's
cool.
like multiple trade paperbacks, and I'm on the third one right now. And it's the guy who wrote it really did his research about the archaeology, like the architecture, the clothing, the style of dress, the culture, the religious practices, everything. It's just phenomenally well done. And I'm also, of course, reading that heroic signatures run on Conan through Titan. I think Zub is just absolutely destroying it. The visuals, the art, everything about it is absolutely fantastic. I don't have enough good things to say. And I say that as someone that has known Jim for years, who knows what a huge Conan fan he is. And you can feel all of that love like on the pages. And so it's great. And like the callbacks to like Call the Conqueror and Bran McMorn and all those little like tidbits that get kind of like dropped in, I think is pretty dope too. So yeah, that's what I'm reading. Heroic Signatures is like they have ownership of all the Howard properties. So it's like the new Titan run, I guess. I don't even know what you're supposed to say, man. I just buy the new Conan. That's like all I do. I don't really
Yeah,
know.
because I know that Marvel had it for a little bit.
Yes,
Is their time with it finished now? It's done.
theirs is done. Theirs is done. Yeah, so theirs is done, and Titan is doing the comic books distribution now. So
Okay. So with just an off-topic question, but on topic, with Conan now, because they've thrown him into the Avengers books, could he always kind of exist as a character
I don't
within the
know.
team structure? Because
I, I
he's a public domain character now, right? Or close to?
He's very close to being a public domain character. I have no doubts that when Conan is public domain, that you're going to see something like that happen. But Conan was a Marvel book forever. Like I've got those
Yeah,
big
that's what I mean.
Marvel Conan omnibuses from back in the 70s that are like phone book caliber thick books. And like there was like I remember there's like what if comics, like what if Conan was in the modern era, like back in like the 80s. So yeah, I
Yeah, yeah.
always think of Conan as like a Marvel character, but there are aspects of the Robert E. Howard verse that are now all exclusively with Titan and Heroic Signatures because they did that big relaunch at Comic Con in San Diego, and they sold like it was in like its third printing before it even hit the store shelves. Like number one comic of the year, I think, is what in terms of like single issue sales. Like phenomenal numbers. Like I saw Jim at one of like the parties at BarCon, what they always call like everyone's just getting crushed at the bar in the hotel there. He was so like emotional about it. It was amazing to watch. It was pretty great to see. I loved it. He needed help. He was good. Yeah.
No, good for no, it's always really cool to see guys who love this stuff, guys and gals who love this stuff get to work on those characters that are so close to their heart because you
Yeah.
know that no matter what they do, they're going to give you their best.
You see me write the Silver Surfer, man. That's what you'll see.
I even Conan, I think you can pull it off with Conan
Oh,
too
I
because you're a
would
big
kill.
Conan
I'd
fan
murder to
yourself.
write a Conan book. I like
we
actually
gotta
there's
we gotta take out Jim.
no, absolutely not. He's been so good to me over the years. But there's a character from the Robert E. Howard verse called Bran MacMorn that I really love. That I'd really love to do a story with him because it's sort of like Bran MacMorn is like the king of the Picts. So in the Howard verse, to sort of like understand the way things were, there was Atlantis, right? And then Atlantis fell into the sea, and they came to the Cimmerians. Sorry, I always say Cimmerians because I grew up reading it. I never heard anyone say it. Even in the movie, I
Right.
don't remember them saying Cimmerian. And then, like, it was like in my 20s when somebody like, it's Cimmerian. I'm like, you're so wrong. It's Chimerian. I'm an idiot. Anyways,
Chimeran's cool.
I think it sounds cool. So they came to
I think so too.
Hyboria and all that stuff, and then that fell apart and evolved into like the modern setting of things. And so the Picts were like led by this guy Bran MacMorn, who was the descendant of this noble warrior from Atlantis kind of thing. And he's like the last of the true Picts that like wants to elevate his people. And the Picts are very capable warriors and hunters and ambushers, but they're constantly infighting. And it's their lack of forward thinking and big thinking that keeps them down and makes them easy to be manipulated by like Danish raiders and the Roman Empire that's moving in. And so in these Bran MacMorn stories, Bran MacMorn sees that his people are weak and like short-sighted, and but they're still capable and they just need proper leadership. And he's constantly struggling to help his people who almost refuse to help themselves. And I love that character so much because I almost feel, without even realizing it, that like Arminius from Dead Romans and Bran MacMorn are very much the same character. You know what I mean? And I would love more than anything to be like greenlit for like a 4-issue run, like a 4-issue run on Bran MacMorn. I'd love it. We'll see if that happens. I'm
you gotta
holding my breath.
you gotta put it out there though, because it like that's the only way things happen, right?
It's
You
written
gotta
though.
think
I'm just
about it.
letting you
Help.
know it's all written out and ready to go. They
That's
just got to
incredible.
tell me that I can do it.
That's incredible. Would you have a an artist in mind that would be just perfectly cast for your story for you that you say I can see this guy drawing it or
Adam
this
Gorham,
person drawing it?
100% Adam Gorham. I'd say Nick, but I got plans to work on that horror story with him. Adam Gorham is my go-to guy. I think his ability to draw horror and to draw like really gritty battle scenes. I don't know if you followed his Instagram, but he just posted. He did that. He's doing that Darth Vader run with Greg Pak over at
No, I haven't
Marvel,
seen that.
and he just posted this today. After we're done interviewing, go check out his Instagram. He posted this, just the inks of this double page splash that he did for the Vader. Of literally, it's just a double page splash of Vader just wrecking dudes. It is so awesome to see because it's like, I think, Adam, I'm so incredibly blessed to call that guy like one of my best friends. Just having known him for so long and seeing the things that he's doing, and his style is just so perfect for that, like getting in the mud and throwing down, like the classic Dark Knight Returns. This ain't a mud pit, it's an operating table, like that style stuff. Like, he makes it so messy and so cool. Like, I love his action scenes. He's one of my absolute favorite artists, like hands down one of my favorites. If I could do that Bran McMorn story, I'd want to do it with him. 100% I would. And plus,
It's gonna
he
happen.
he knows what I like to do, and he knows how, and I know what he likes to do too.
Yeah.
So I'll
Well,
write.
yeah, you guys are a team, right?
Yeah,
From
I'll
way
write
back.
it with him with what he wants to do in mind. So, 100%.
Yeah, that'd be great. Well, I'm sure that it's gonna happen. I'd love to see it happen. Let's put it out there. Okay, something that you highly recommend.
Oh, 100 bullets. And I think I say that because I'm rereading it right now. Um, be, First of all, it's Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Rizzo. like, come on. Eduardo Rizzo. And it's like Eduardo Rizzo just like obliterating your mind on every page. When I wrote this in my answer, I said exercise. Everyone should try
Yeah,
exercise
you
for your
did.
brain. But I didn't realize just one of the things that I have. So 100 bullets, and they just did the special edition omnibuses coming up from Vertigo, which is like it's two phone books. It's insane because it's
Yeah.
100 issues.
Yeah.
Um, I would suggest you try and find the trade paperbacks, like the individual trades, because they have that like almost newsprint rough paper.
Yep. I like
And
that. I like that style.
I do like it because I feel like that's the way Vertigo books were meant to be read, and Eduardo Rizzo drew it for that type of paper, so it works. And I
It's
can
funny
admit
how that makes a difference.
it does, because like with his style, like there's so much black that you want almost that like dull paper to make it even pop, because on a gloss paper with that style, it ends up looking way brighter than it should, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. It
Um,
makes complete sense.
Now, if you're reading like Rising Stars from J. Michael Straczynski and Gary Frank, that looks really good on the gloss paper, and they do specific things that are meant to be on that type of paper because of the way it's drawn.
Absolutely.
But with 100 bullets, it's got to be on that rough paper because Eduardo Rizzo is really big on negative space. Like, it's all shadowed faces, and you see half of something and half of this.
Yeah.
It's great, and the characters, like, we're talking about great characters. Like, what's amazing about it is the way it starts as one thing and becomes something completely different. But these like these unstoppable agent guys, and they've all got code names, and they're so cool, and they wear suits, and they're just like, they're awesome. Like the Point Man, the dog, the monster. They're just, it's such a good story. Like my
I
favorite. Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say I've never read it before, but I know you've always highly recommended it. So yeah, continue.
Yeah,
There's a story.
there's a line there's a line in it, and it's my two of the main characters are about to fight, and there's this line, and it's like they're trying to figure who's gonna win, and the guy goes, it's hard to say because one can't feel pain and one can't live without it. And it's like, like that. It's just like, it's such a good line. And like, and you're dealing with terrible, again, terrible people that you hate, but then you're almost rooting for them. And it's just, they're all awful, but it's great. And I can't recommend it enough. Also, Darwin Cook's Parker series is another one that I'll always recommend. Darwin Cook, everything he does is fantastic. I see you got the New Frontier on your bookshelf
Oh
behind
yeah.
you. It's just
Oh yeah.
Everything Darwin Cook did is perfect. It's so good. He's uh, one of the greatest comic book creators of all time. And we were lucky to live in an era where he was just putting out book after book after book after book. And his Parker books are just unbelievable, like unbelievable. Especially Slayground out of those is my favorite.
It's to your point of everything you've been saying just about the presentation and the way that the paper you choose and all of these artists that you're kind of explaining their styles. It's almost like a film filter. How,
Yeah.
you know, you can
Yes.
tell when it's this artist or this director working on it, and if they're put into like a more clearer, you know, who's a director that we can refer to that is
Like if you got
J.J.
a
Abrams.
yeah.
Not everyone can do J.J. Abrams. That's his thing. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes it works for him. Sometimes we get annoyed, but Quentin Tarantino, you know when it's his movies, and it should be the same with the when we read these comics. If it's done in the wrong type of
Hold
paper,
on a
it's almost
second.
like
Hold on.
watching a
I've got it right behind me.
yeah.
Hold on. Grab right there.
There it
Put it
is.
right there.
There
Hold
it
on.
is.
Because like I want to show because you're so right. The like the style that he looks and the way that he does it. Like if you take a look here, just like look at the way the pages are all laid out, you know?
Yeah.
It's just his
The paneling is part of the art.
absolutely.
It's
And
art in itself.
just
Yeah.
like everything about it, like and then he'll go through like these like sequences where there's just art and just that like black, white, and a singular tone. Like it's so simple, but it works so good. And this is honestly out of all of them, Slayground is my favorite. Like that's my absolute favorite one in the whole series. I've got all of them, and what's great about that one is it's by far the shortest, but it's so tight and it's so good. And it's like within the first 3 pages you're in. It's like a heist gone wrong. He ends up in an amusement park, and then a bunch of mobsters and crooked cops are trying to murder him, and he's just trying to get out of an amusement park. And it's like it doesn't get any simpler than that. And along the way, you learn what happened, why did things go wrong, and it really reminds me of, or rather, I should say that Red Dead Redemption 2, the storyline reminds me of that in that it starts after a heist gone wrong, you know? I don't know if you played the game,
Right.
but the game starts with a heist gone wrong. And then as the game goes along, you realize what happened. Why did the heist go wrong? And it sort of changes who in the story you think is good and who is bad. I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is probably one of the greatest stories I've ever consumed, even though it's a video game. I would like to say consumed because I didn't really read it, did I?
I hear that a lot though about video games these days where people they yeah, the gameplay and all of that is vital, but people are so into the story, the drama,
Yes.
like the in between scenes have become so important to people's game playing experience. So it doesn't surprise me that one of your favorite stories of all time comes from a video game.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the the Darwin Cook Parker, it's been recently put into like an omnibus form, right?
Yeah.
Everything is collected and I got to pick that up. Okay.
You can get the
I
omnibus. I would recommend it. I prefer the individual IDW hardcovers, like this
okay.
style. They're just like this. They're super thin and they got that novelized like feel to them. I don't know. They're great. And like, look at those interior covers. Like, oh god, it's all so good. You know, like Jay Bone
Yeah,
when you talk to him, he's a good someone to talk to who worked very closely um, with uh, with Darwin a lot on a lot of projects, and it's like he really was like a credit. Like I'm like look at this. We're on the first page, and it's already things have hit the fan. You know, right there at the very beginning, the mine had hit the armored car just right. There was a sharp metallic smell all around, and the echo of the explosion seemed to twang in the cold air, ricocheting off the power lines above. It's like, come on. Come on, it's so good. Like,
Yeah, that is
anyways,
pretty dope.
yeah. I'm sorry, I'm gushing now.
No, that's okay. Gush away. Darwin Cook deserves it, man. We lost him way too soon.
Hmm.
Okay. A complete set. What's a something you've completed in your
I've got
collection?
the whole run of Invincible. I got the whole run of Invincible. You know what? I won't even do that. I'm gonna get more personal. Like I think that I am, and then you'll find a lot of guys that are my age, that loved comics growing up, fell out of it, and then got back in
Mm,
later on. Like I
hmm
loved reading comics, and then when I got into my day job, like into broadcasting, I was broke. Like I was so broke. I had no money, and I was living in small towns, and there was no comic shops around, and there's no internet really. And it wasn't until I went back to Edmonton and I started hanging out with some guys that went to this comic shop called the Happy Harbor, run by this guy Jay Bardila, and one of the greatest human beings to this day. Like I talk to Jay all the time. In fact, one time I've made some dark jokes online, and he'll message me, "Are you okay, man?" Like he's that guy. He'll reach out to see if you're okay, and he's like a guy that owns a comic book shop, curmudgeonly comic book store guy, but he's like a genuinely great guy, and he got me back into comics. And it was when Why the Last Man was like the book with Vertigo. Like it was the book you had to get. And so I read all of Why the Last Man. And I'm going to say that like the complete run of that was incredible. I would say I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending, but I would say that what makes Why the Last Man so special is it comes from a very unique point in comic books of that early 2000s when there was like some really rad comics that were coming out. And that run, that complete run, that's what got me into, you know how you like bands and then you don't really like them anymore, but you like the bands that you like that they introduced you to. You know what I mean? That's Why the
Yep,
Last Man
yep.
for me. And I think that it did some really cool stuff. Um, got me into Northlanders and got me into a bunch of other things. But I think that people, the TV show, I feel I'm frustrated about the TV show because the TV show is something that people were talking about in like 2006, 2007. And then it didn't actually get made until like 5 years ago. And by the time it got made, I felt like its moment had passed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you read the comic for the sake of reading the comic, you will appreciate what it meant to so many people at the time. I think, if that makes any
Yeah, I
sense.
think
That's
sometimes people forget you got to transport yourself to when it was made.
yes.
You can't watch it like it was made yesterday
Hmm.
and feel for it the way you think you're supposed to feel for it now. You got to remember this was made in 1985 or this was 1996, whatever it was, and it's like something like Why the Last Man is so ahead of its time at the time
Yeah.
that you do not get what comes after that because ideas trigger themselves, right? You need somebody to kind of get, like you said, go for those really rad stories. And then I'm like, you know what? I've always wanted to tell this story, but I
Yeah.
thought maybe it was too out there. But now that you did that, people might like this. So it's very true. I have a I had Why the Last Man omnibus and I really loved it. But I when I had to do a little bit of purging of my collection, I kept Ex Machina because I just thought it was a little bit
Yeah.
more unique as a Brian K. Vaughan story. It was
Yeah.
so cool to reread that and to like the way he balances the way he balances the storytelling is so well done. But yeah, you're right. Why the Last Man is that band that introduces you to a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned Invincible. I love Invincible.
Yeah. I've got the full run of Invincible. That actually right there, like right there, that is the infamous double splash page of Conquest where he is just like punched through Adam Eve and he is just mercilessly destroying everybody. That's the double splash page of his face where he's talking. And those are the original inks. You can get a good look back in there. That's like
Oh,
if
I
you're talking about
can't.
like my ultimate collection item, that is it right there. Take a good look.
Oh, nice. Nice. Very
So
nice.
my that's the only physical copy that exists of those pages because the pencils got destroyed in a basement flood. And I only know that because Ryan Otley told me about it, and Robert Kirkman wanted to buy that page off of me at San Diego. I was there for Teletoon, and I got him to sign it, and he wouldn't even give me the amount that he was willing to pay me, because his line is, he goes, "I want to buy this from you." And I go, "My wife gave it to me." And he looks at me and goes, "Do you love your wife?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "I'm not going to tell you how much money I'm willing to give you for this." And then he signed it and he walked away. He was so nice about it. So that's my big, like, I love Invincible so much, so much. And I watch the R-rated cartoon with my children because I'm a terrible parent.
You're from the Gilded Age. That's
They
just who
love
you
it.
are, Fred.
They love it. They love it. They love that
It's so
show.
good.
Yes.
It's I bring it up almost every episode on the podcast, and people say you're always talking about Invincible because it's just the best superhero comic.
You know what I
I
could say?
love
Like, I almost
Marvel.
brought this up for guilty pleasure, is the Halo series. I love the Halo TV show, and all the Halo fans dump on it, etc. Blah 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 blah. It's like, good. Hate on it all you want. Don't even care. I still love it. Still love it. I love it so much. Like when the Spartans drop down in that first episode, all the ships look the same, the props look the same, the costuming. And this is my favorite, the sound. The sound design is lifted directly from the game, and I love it so much. Like when the shields break and they charge, I was like sitting in the living room with my arms up. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, they did it, they did it. And it's like, is it very different than the game? Yes, it is. They changed so much, and people can be mad if they want. I don't care. I think, oh, dude, I love it. And Pablo Schreiber as like a Canadian boy playing the Master Chief, who I adored as the Leprechaun in American Gods. I thought he was so cool as the Leprechaun. I don't know if you watched American Gods. It kind of
I'm
fell
halfway.
apart near
I'm in
the
the
end.
book actually.
Yeah, the book and the
I'm
show are very different. But he, as the
okay.
Leprechaun, he was very cool. And there was some episodes about him as the Leprechaun and how Mr. Wednesday has manipulated his mind to change what he thinks his past is. And those episodes about him as the Leprechaun, as this warrior king in Ireland, like, my last name's Kennedy, get all charged up on it. Like, it's just like, he's so badass. And when they were like, he's playing Master Chief, I was like, perfect. It's perfect. Yeah. And he actually, I tweeted about him. I tweeted about him online about how excited I was. And he wrote back saying, "Who would have thought that knowing how to drive in the snow and just being polite were the necessary skills to save the universe?" I was like, I'm pretty much on Halo, is what I'm saying. I'm pretty much on the show.
I love the passion. It's palpable. That's perfect. All right, let's round it up. Your favorite comic book cover? Do you have
Uh,
a favorite cover?
and honestly, like, this has nothing to do with me reading them right now. Dave Johnson's covers for 100 Bullets, especially that cover for trade paperback 8. It's this like silhouette of a dude who's in the story and he's playing a bugle, and then inside the silhouette are all kinds of the characters and the things that are happening. Like, it is on Dave Johnson's covers are always amazing. Like his cover for Red Sun, like, come on. Like, that would be, if I'm gonna pick great covers, invariably I'm gonna pick a Dave Johnson cover, would be the one that I would pick. It's everything, every one of his covers is so good. But I will lean hard on Dave Johnson's covers. Red Sun is iconic. Alex Ross's cover for Kingdom Come is another big one. But his covers for 100 Bullets, and it could be because, like, Why the Last Man got me back into comics, but 100 Bullets gave me the love and the whoa I felt of comics when I was like 12. Um, what else would I like from that era? That I think it's issue 5, Infinity Gauntlet, with the gauntlet, and it's like the like the up shadow on Thanos' face, and then in the beams of the reflections is everyone's face. Like there's a reason you see that on so many shirts because it's an amazing cover. But I will lean back on Dave Johnson's covers for 100 Bullets, and there's so many great ones. Like there's one with like a wine glass and blood dripping off of it, forming this skull. Like you gotta watch them. Like take a look at them. And then there's like this one character named Diz, and she's like from the ghetto in LA. And there's like some stories that follow her as she's sort of like becoming. I don't want to give anything away. She's becoming an agent of a nefarious group, and it's like there's these guys from like MS-13 and like holding guns and making gang signs, and then like almost like a you know that like classic image of the Virgin Mary with the sun behind her, but it's all handguns around them, and then like the number 13. Like there's
That's
honestly
dope.
just if you can find a gallery of Dave Johnson's covers for 100 Bullets, it's just how do you pick one? They're all so good. They're all so strong. And I am so biased. So biased. If it wasn't that one, I would say the A and B cover from Dead Romans issue 4.
There you go. Nice.
Shout out my boy
Bring it
Nick
right back.
Marinkovich. That's right.
Yes,
Also, I'll
bring
say
it
this.
right back.
Nick has a Conan cover that he's doing, and I saw it. And sweet Jesus, it's unbelievable. Like it is, as a Conan fan, it is incredible. Like that's coming out soon, so keep an eye for that one, man.
Sweet. Nice going. When it comes to Conan, and I know this is completely biased as it should be, but where Jim's run hanging in for you in regards to the whole pantheon of writers? Because he's hanging out with titans now
Oh,
in the
it's
people who've written that book,
I
right?
don't think that's a question anyone can answer that isn't just thoroughly
No.
steeped in like what you like about the Conan character. I think
Yeah.
Jim's really good at adventure. Jim makes it feel like adventure. And I like that. And that's what Jim likes about Conan, the big adventure, you know what I mean? The adventure, the adventure.
Yeah.
I would say Kurt Busiek's run with Carrie Nord. I love Kurt Busiek's writing. I also really love Tim Truman. Tim Truman wrote the
Yeah. You
Black
told me about
Colossus
that.
version, and his retelling of the Black Colossus is just so good. As a fan of the Howard books, like he just destroys it. But what I like about Kurt Busiek is that, and I don't know how he does it, but he makes it feel magical. Like he
Yeah.
makes you feel because
Yeah. It.
he starts out with book zero is Conan as a little kid going on adventures
Yeah.
with other little kids from his village, and it feels magic. I like Jason Aaron's run too. I don't want to dismiss anybody, but I really think that Dark Horse run from the early 2000s with Kurt Busiek and Carrie Nord on it. I have pissed off so many people when I've said that Carrie Nord is my favorite Conan artist because
Really.
he's very different in terms of the classic Conan look, but I think it's great, and I think it's not just his art; it's the colorist that he's working with at the same time, and I feel like an asshole for not being able to name drop colorists that worked on that run of the book. But they've also got Dave Marshall editing it, and Dave Marshall's like the best. So, like in terms of editors, like there's Dave Marshall, anybody from Marvel that would give me work, anyone from DC that will give me work, and Allison O'Toole. Those are all of the best editors in the game right now.
Smart guy.
I love Allison. I'll say this.
Anyone?
Allison O'Toole is, if you're looking for a freelance editor, she's the absolute best there is. I was talking with her today about another book that I might need to bring in an editor for. And I was talking to her, and I said it, and I was very honest. Like I'm like, you will always be my first call. Like you will always be my first call that I make. Like she's so good, And I think what makes her good is me as an individual. I'm very mercurial, and I talk a good game, but writing is harder than talking. And sometimes when you put words on the page, the words will tell you no, and then Allison will come along and say, "Fuck those words. You're right. They're the best. It's done." And that's what makes her good, is that she's good at like helping you believe in what you're doing. And that's what editors like. I think that people, especially freelance writers, have this weird, the editors are telling me what to do, man. And it's like, that cool. That I'm sure that happens, and it can happen. Yeah, it does happen. But a good editor, like a good editor, takes a decent writer and makes them seem great. And I am telling you bluntly, I do not know if we would have stuck the landing as solid. I think that Dead Romans has a really strong ending. I think it ends really strong. And I will give full credit that it was Allison that made that happen. We had two endings, and Nick and I were leaning towards one, and Allison was leaning towards the other. And then it got pretty heated. And Allison just explained why she felt the way she did. And like, as she was saying it, it's like, you just know that they're right, and then you realize the only reason you're disagreeing isn't because of what the value it is to the story, but because you think that you need to. She's so good, man.
Yeah.
She's so good. And I'm very, very lucky to have that team that I have. And not just like Andrew Thomas doing letters and Jose Villarrubia. Jose mother-loving Villarrubia doing colors in that book, which is, oh my God, like that's the hugest deal ever. He's the best. He's such a, yeah. So yeah, I'm rambling here. I'm very lucky.
No, you know what? The gratitude that you have, and the way that the success of the book is a whole team thing, right? It was
Yes.
your idea initially to have this story, but you're so appreciative of everybody that brought it together that it wouldn't exist without them. And you wouldn't be as proud of what it turned out to be without all these other people who contributed. So it's always nice to see, somebody who isn't so precious about, not to say that you don't care, but you're also like, how can we make this as good as possible? And you share
Yeah.
the glory with all of your teammates. Like that's beautiful. That's the
So
way
it's
it should
like,
be.
Scott Chandler had this amazing line at a panel, and he's just like, Scott Chandler is fantastic. If you're ever at a con and Scott Chandler's at a panel, just go watch it, because it's going to be great, because he's going to say intelligent things. And he said, the artist tells the story to the art. The writer tells the story to the artist. The artist tells the story to the reader. And it's like, that's it. That's it right there.
Yeah, that's a really good process. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Dude, oh, as always, it's a blast talking to you. Your excitement is contagious. I'm excited for everything coming out this year now. I want to read comics.
There's some
So I
other stuff
appreciate
coming
it,
that I
dude. And
can't
thank you for always
talk
giving.
about. There's stuff that's
Well, we'll
happening
have
that
you
I
back.
can't. Yes, in the summer, and you're gonna start seeing words about this in a few months.
Okay.
This book is big. This will be a big book for me. It's an IP. It's a property that I have been a fan of since the summer of 1997. And when I got to write it, it was the very, very surreal experience, because I got to write canon for one of the coolest franchises that I can think of. And I like wrote official canon for it. And one of the characters that I wrote will be appearing in a video game that I didn't even realize was going to happen. That's cool.
That's
We'll
sweet.
talk about that in a
That
few months.
Yes, definitely. You always have a place here to come and talk about what you're working on, promote stuff, and just hang out with us, Fred. We love having you here, dude. Thank you for always giving your time and being so gracious, man. Are you going to be at Toronto Comic Con?
100%. 100%. I've already got my
All right.
table. That reminds me, I've got to email my boss and book some days off work. But yes, I will be there.
There you go. You're welcome. Well, thank you everybody for listening again to the Omniverse Comics Guide Collector's Item Special, and Fred for coming back on. Be sure to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or any of your podcast platforms that you like. Be sure to hit the rate it, subscribe, share it, all that good stuff. Fred, where can people follow you and find all your good stuff? One more time, give us a plug.
At fearless_Fred on Twitter and Instagram, and also on Threads and on Blue Sky. Just look for Fearless Fred and you'll find me.
And get this book, guys.
Yes.
And gals. And
Yeah.
get this book.
The
All right, everybody.
oversized
Thank you so
hardcover
much.
edition, fresh copies at the table at the Toronto Comic Con.
There, woo, get them signed by the team. All right. Perfect. Fred, I'll see you in Toronto or maybe sooner. Who knows? All right,
Absolutely.
everybody.